That's what she said.
I like it.
We're recording now. So how you been doing, man?
What's that, brother?
How you been doing?
Good today. Good. Got a day off. Went and ate some wings not too long ago, so it's been a good day.
Where's your favorite place to get wings?
I normally like to go to Drover's, but it's kind of out of the way, and I haven't been there in a long time. I went to the 19th hole today, which was excellent as well.
Nice. You didn't go with the basic answer like Buffalo Wild Wings or
Nah. I try to support the local businesses as much as I can.
Fair, dude, because that's the thing though, is you have your basic answers, but some of the best places you can eat at is like local.
Yeah, totally.
Because when I was living out in Arizona, I was wondering what the best burger joint to eat at, and somebody told me there's this little place. It was like a bar type thing, but it's the best burger I've had my entire life.
Nice.
It was called Big Earl's Greasy Eats.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah, it'll stop your fucking heart.
That's the best kind. That's the best kind.
So what got you into music? Because when I met you, you were in the band Disobey.
Yes, that's true. We lasted 10 years. For being an underground black metal band, especially in the Valley when nobody sounded like us, 10 years was a good run, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'd real quick like to thank everybody that was ever involved in Disobey. I mean, they all came and brought it, so, you know, I couldn't have done it without them. So I want to give everybody there a real quick shout out. So thanks to all the former members. Yeah. What got me started into music, I was about 4 years old and I discovered my mom's Kiss Alive 2 album. And that album cover, Gene Simmons scared me, but I wanted to do that. I knew right away that's kind of what I wanted to do. I saw that and I was just blown away because at that age, you're so impressionable and your imagination is just going. You know, especially if you're kind of like ADHD hyperactive like I am, your imagination is just going. So you could just imagine, I thought all rock stars looked like that at first. I thought everybody painted their face and spit blood, you know?
No, just the musicians you listen to.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was like, when I saw musicians out to paint, I'm like, oh. But a funny side story is Dee Snider used to scare me when I was like 4 years old.
I'm interested then. If Dee Snider scared you, what the hell did Alice Cooper do for you?
I like that. I didn't hear Alice, honestly, till I was about 10 years old. It was the Poison video.
Oh, that's mediocre compared to his
I discovered him a little late, and then I went into his back catalog and just loved it.
See, I didn't get into Alice till what you'd consider late. I got into Alice when I was like, I want to say 15. It was around the time when he released the Along Came a Spider album.
Oh, okay, yeah. Slash that one, yeah.
Yeah, and what caught my eye was he released that music video, and it was like a fucking movie.
Yeah.
So then I looked back into his catalog, and this dude got heavy. He had softer music. He had ballads. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Alice can do it all. And I've never seen a performer at that age that can still go to that level. I mean,
right?
I've never seen anybody more consistent live. Never. I've seen pretty much everybody at this point. And I've not had a bad live experience with him and never will. You know what I mean? It's guaranteed to be a great time and a great show every time you go see him.
Even vocally, like, there's performers that have off nights, and I've not seen him have an off night yet, bro. You're also one of the few people in this area, though. I got to give you credit because you're in a black metal band in a very religious area. And
yeah.
And you also was into G.G. Allen.
Yeah, I just thought he was just so over the top. I just couldn't believe that man existed. I kept hearing about it for years. I'm like, no way, you guys are. This was like before the internet was real huge, and we all had these high-tech devices we have now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that guy don't exist. And then I saw the documentary Hated. I'm like, wow, this is the most insane, unhinged, ridiculous human being I've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah. So naturally, I was drawn to it. So.
I actually was digging into like fucked up musicians somewhat recently, and there was one, I forget the name of the band, but I saw the documentary and they made like G.G. Allen look like Barney.
Wow.
The lead singer nailed his foreskin to a board while singing.
While singing.
While singing, straight on nailing it to a board.
Wow. I'm speechless, and that doesn't happen very often. I might get video bombed by one of my cats.
you're gonna Google this tonight.
I don't know. Oh, there's Ivy. Everybody say hi.
You have a beautiful cat.
I have another one too, but she's surprisingly being camera shy. I figured she'd be all up in this.
When I went and saw you guys though with Disobey, it was a sold out show, and that shocked me because we live in like the Ohio, we'd call it the Ohio Valley, right. And it's a very conservative religious area.
Yes, it really is.
But metal is also becoming more and more accepted in this area.
Yeah. It seems like as long as I've been doing this, there's like waves. Like when I first started way back in 2001, there was a lot of bands. And then for a while there wasn't. Then around the time Disobey got started, there were some bands. But between like 2010 and 2017, there was a ton of bands in the area. Mm-hmm. Some of it was a bit incestuous, like the New Orleans metal scene, where, you know, people would be in multiple bands. And some people still do that. I commend them for that. I did that when I was younger, but I don't think I could do that now.
There's a lot of people in this area, like you said, though, that are in like 5 or 6 different fucking bands.
Yeah, I don't know how. God, I'll just name drop. I don't know how like Andrew DeCagnan and Corey Roth do it. I mean, I commend them for doing it. That's awesome, but I don't know how they do it at the same time. That's a lot of organization that I do not have. Especially another name to drop is Juan of Sunless Sky. He's in like 4 different. Yeah. He doesn't look, that dude's like a vampire. I couldn't believe his age when he told me. I'm like, no way.
Yeah, he told me. I'm like, dude, no.
Yeah. He has so much energy and enthusiasm. I hope I'm like that in 15 or 20 years. You know what I mean? I imagine I will be, but yeah.
So what caused Disobey to break up, and what was the initial conversation when bringing Altered States back? Because a lot of people might not realize, but Altered States was a band many years ago with a different
when I was like in grade school. Yeah, they were out doing the damn thing. Yeah, I don't know what led to them breaking up. You would have to ask Mr. Tronka on that one. Altered States, that is. But when Disobey split up, I felt like 10 years, you know, being very against the grain. Even in our area, nobody sounded like us, and I felt 10 years was a good run. You know, I was happy with the last show we actually did. And, you know, the guys were all kind of doing other projects, and I didn't want to interfere with that. You know, I wanted to let them do their things. You know what I mean? Because like they were all, especially the last lineup, like again, not to diss the other ones, but that last lineup was just so solid. You know, I just wanted to let them, you know, branch out and do other stuff. Like Tim was in, can't think, he was in Plague Welder for a good while, and I can't think of the death metal band he was in. Salted Earth, that's it. That was really good, yeah. And Poof, who was kind of like my right-hand man who helped me co-found Disobey, rather, he was in Plague Welder for a while too. He's happily retired now, and that's cool. You know, I don't have a problem with anybody that's ever been in the band. I think that's rare for somebody to say, but yeah, I can pretty much get along with just about everybody. So yeah, it just felt like it was time. I was trying to do something a bit more, not accessible, but something easier on my voice, because I never took a single singing lesson ever. Mm-hmm. Not one. I've just been kind of winging it since day one. And I wanted to do something with a lot of clean vocals at the time. And I did very briefly have a project, but it never really got off the ground. Then I took a good bit of time off, and just going through some personal stuff, and it wasn't a good idea to be trying to front a band or organize anything really. And then at like I said on the radio, at Sweet Chuck's, the late Sweet Chuck's rather, benefit show, I ran into BMO, who I've been in at least 3 other bands with before. He said he was jamming with these dudes. Are you singing for anybody? I said no. And he said, would you like to? I said, hell yes. And I went to the first Altered States practice. I knew Tim because he was in Angel Rust, like on one of the DeCagnan's older bands, like a long time ago. He was the original drummer, I do believe. And I knew him, and he'd always come out to the shows. And Mike, I never knew until I met him with this band, and the instant chemistry, I was like, okay, we're on to something here. So that's how that all came about.
That's cool as shit, because I'll be honest, I knew Altered States was a band a long time ago, but I'd never really listened to them. So I couldn't really tell you how different or how the same it is from the previous lineup, because I've never heard it.
The vibe, I do believe, again, this would be a question Mike would be more like sufficient to answer. But the vibe, I do believe, is still very similar. Like, if I had to label us, I guess I'd say we're like a traditional thrash metal hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about right. You know, I just call us a metal band because we sneak in a little bit of everything. And, yeah, you know, it's been a great time working with those guys, and everybody's on the same page. Everybody's very driven, especially, you know, recently, you know, and, yeah, we just try to go out there and kill it every chance we can.
Hell, you guys recently was on the radio.
Yeah. We're I think we're gonna go back too, right before the Midsummer Metal Fest launches.
That's fucking badass, dude.
Yeah, if you would have told 13-year-old me that I'd be hearing my heavy metal band on the radio, I'd be like, no, man, you're on crack or something, you know? I wouldn't believe it. But yeah, it was very surreal and a very, very proud moment to hear that the other day, to hear my music on the radio and to be interviewed on the radio. It was a great opportunity, and I can't thank Rage 96.5 and especially like the Tronkas, Mike and Wendy, for making all that happen. So that was a really big moment. Yeah,
they're good people. I recently did a show with you guys, and it was spectacular. It was for the what was the name of that one?
The toy drive, the heavy metal toy drive, something like that. Yeah.
I forgot the name of it. I know it was a toy drive. Unfortunately, that was held by a guy who recently got in trouble for some things. But
yeah, we're not donating there if we do it again. That's for sure.
I have heard bad things about him, but I didn't have evidence, so I didn't really want to say nothing. But
yeah, I feel you.
Unfortunately, though, in that field, it's not uncommon for that kind of thing to happen.
Yeah. You know, it's weird that people try to accuse like trans people of that. 9 times out of 10, it's people in power. It's like your neighbors or like.
Well, that goes back though. Do you prefer to be called Matt, or what do you prefer to be called?
It doesn't matter, man. Whatever.
Okay. But it goes back to like and you're old enough to remember this. I kind of vaguely remember it. The Satanic Panic. It goes back to that. The churches.
Yeah, I was real little, so I was probably kept from a lot of that, but I do remember hearing rumbles of it as a child, yes.
This is very reminiscent of that, accusing other people of the very things that they're doing.
Yeah. That's happened throughout history many, many times, and probably will, unfortunately.
Like during the Satanic Panic, they were accusing metal musicians of hurting children and blah, blah, blah. And it was the Catholic Church that was doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane how, like, but people are finally starting to come around and see that we're not bad people. We just like our music loud and aggressive. That's just
and blasphemous in sometimes.
And sometimes, yeah. Yeah, we just like our music to be like, you know, a little make people think. You know what I mean? Like just yesterday, you know, I had a lady, I had a Manson shirt on at work, Marilyn Manson. I had a lady say he was demonic, and I'm like, not really. He just wants people to think, you know, and that's what a lot of hard rock and heavy metal musicians want people to do. You know, they want them to be individuals. They want people to think for themselves.
But that to a lot of religious people, not saying all, but to a lot of religious people, thinking for yourself and even nature is deemed evil.
Yeah, I've never understood that. I personally, I mean, like I have no problem with people that have religion in their lives, and most of my friends are Christian, and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, if people are into it, that's fine. You know, if they're not, if it makes them happy, great. You know what I mean? I probably would have been a lot more confrontational about it when I was younger, but that's just being young and full of piss and vinegar, they say, you know,
full of rage. And
yeah, just young and angsty, you know. But I'm a lot more mellow now, so you know, if it does something for people, that's great. I've never really been into it myself. I've read a good bit about certain religions, but I've never really been one to identify with one.
I'm pretty much the same way. Like, I've done deep dives my entire life on various religions and stuff and various viewpoints, and I wouldn't necessarily judge anyone based on it. However, don't shove that shit down my throat and try to tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah. I'm not.
Like, what the fuck? Is there any chances, though, for those that are listening, of a Disobey reunion?
Well, like I said earlier, Daniel Poof Kuntz is pretty happily retired, and he was like my right-hand man. You know what I mean? Like, he wrote a lot of the riffs. I actually wrote everything on our very first demo, which has been long out of print. But after that, he kind of just took the ball and ran with it. So, like, and I don't know if I could do those kind of vocals for an hour plus. Like, with Altered States, I sneak it in, but I don't know if I could do those kind of vocals to the level I once did.
I noticed that you don't really do harsh vocals anymore, so it's got to be better on your voice.
It really is.
And your vocal style is very unique because you're more of a punk vocalist. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of particularly like the 70s wave of punk, I'm not to really name drop again, but obviously the Ramones, Iggy and the Stooges, like the Misfits with Danzig, although I did like the Graves era too, but the Misfits stuff with Danzig, like Black Flag, stuff like that, the Pistols, of course, a lot of the Clash stuff, stuff like that. I've always really been into that.
What do you think of the Pistols touring without Johnny Rotten?
Well, I was kind of against it at first, being a frontman myself. I'm like, I don't know, and I saw some footage, and I'm not familiar with the guy they have, to be honest, but he sounded really good from what I saw. And I read some other interviews where Johnny didn't really want to be there, and those guys aren't getting along. So rather than fake it, getting a younger guy was, they're really only their option, since they want to go back out on the road. So I'm cool with it, but at first I was very skeptical.
At the end of the day, though, isn't it those three guys the main songwriters of the Sex Pistols anyway, and the original members?
Yeah, I think the record was even wrote before Sid got on board.
It was, because I forget his name, but their current bassist is the original.
Yeah, Glenn Matlock, yeah.
Yeah.
So and I was also told that Sid was so strung out that Steve Jones played most of the bass on the album.
That's probably true, because around the time the album was released, Sid was very deep in his addiction.
Yeah.
So he probably got songwriting credits, but he probably didn't even play on the fucking album.
That's probably happened more times than we know of in music in general,
Well, look at those first 5 Ozzy albums. Brad Daisley didn't get any fucking songwriting credits.
Yeah, there's like some huge bad blood there. I don't know the whole backstory, but that's a mess.
Or Bob Daisley. Sorry, Bob Daisley.
Yeah,
Daisley wrote the first, I think, 5 Ozzy albums, but they were credited just to Ozzy. And Bob's like, Ozzy can't play an instrument.
No. Yeah, I've never seen or heard of Ozzy playing any instrument ever.
But he's still a god of metal.
Oh, yeah. Black Sabbath. I mean, there were like some heavy bands before, but Black Sabbath is the first metal band. The first band you could label a heavy metal band, and no one would look at you sideways about it,
There are a couple that people would argue because they came around the same time. I heard one recently. I forget their name, so I'll have to send them to you once I find them again.
Okay.
But they came out a couple of years before Black Sabbath. They were also a very heavy blues rock group. And they were
It Blue Cheer, maybe?
No, not Blue Cheer.
They were credited for like the early heavy metal vibe too, because they were pretty loud for their time.
Mm-hmm. Them and Pentagram, but I think Pentagram came out a few years after Sabbath.
Yeah. I think they started like 71, I believe.
No, this band I'm thinking of came out in like 65.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. And their first album was like 67.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's pretty early.
There was also the theory, and I'm not saying Black Sabbath did it on purpose. I'm just saying this is a theory that's out there. There was a band that came out in the mid to early 60s by the name of Coven.
Oh, yeah.
The bassist's name was Oz Osbourne.
That's true, yeah.
Their first track on their debut album was Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I knew a guy that used to have that on vinyl, believe it or not.
Yeah, and so do you think Black Sabbath may have accidentally lifted from this band, or is it just a really crazy mishap and a very crazy just happenstance? Because on that album,
it's really hard to say. I don't want to say yes or no to that one because it's really hard to tell. you know, there wasn't a lot of technology at all back then. So there's more chance it could have been a coincidence. But then again, maybe they lifted it. You know, that's kind of a gray area there. It's really hard to tell.
Because even on the album cover, I don't know if you saw the album cover,
Oh, yeah.
but Oz Osbourne is doing this on the album cover.
Yeah, he was the first one to do that. I mean, Dio took it to the next level for sure. Ronnie James Dio really took the doing the horns to the next level. But yeah, that guy was the first one to do that. That on record, at least. Yeah.
Wasn't the horns thing though a really old pagan hand sign, meaning like to banish evil?
You know, I can't think of what that was off the top of my head. You know, I'm not really.
I remember seeing an interview with Dio. Sorry to interrupt. I saw an interview with Dio, and he said that his grandmother was the one that did that. That's how she was painted.
Yeah, it did have something to do with warding off spirits or evil or something like that, now that you mention it, but I'm not exactly sure the details of that one.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
So what's some modern bands you're getting into lately?
To be honest, really not too many. I'm pretty busy, so I don't have time to keep up, but there are a couple really good death metal bands I heard called Fulci, who write songs based on the Italian director Lucio Fulci, the Italian horror director. It's brilliant. I wish I would have thought of something like that, you know. There's another band that has like a throwback sound without sounding dated, which is called Necrot, and I like them a lot too. But they're the only ones that are really standing out in my mind at the moment. This one band I lost touch with, Imperial Triumphant, did an album called Alphaville about 5 years ago, and I thought that was like genre pushing without alienating the black metal sound. And they did a lot of weird things like barbershop quartets and like saxophones. And I'm like, that's not going to work. And somehow it did.
Black metal?
Up with them since, but that was a really unique and like kind of forward thinking album without abandoning, without losing the heaviness and that mystique that goes with like black and death metal.
Well, black metal gets a bad rap in those regards, but I've heard like some really good, like some like operatic fucking black metal and some symphonic, and that shit's so good.
Yeah, bands like Cradle of Filth and Demi Borgir really pushed that symphonic, orchestral element. And Cradle of Filth even used a lot of female vocals, and I'm pretty sure they still do.
Mm-hmm.
And, and they've been going a long time. Demi hasn't put out anything original in a long time, but I know they still do shows at least. And Danny Filth is a workhorse. That dude is always touring or recording or something.
I saw Cradle of Filth a few years back, and man, that was a show.
Yeah, I saw them open for Danzig, and say what you will about Danzig, but every time I've seen him, he's been incredible live. Like he's really brought it, and he's getting up there too. He has a lot of energy, and and they gave him a run for his money. And Cradle was just as good. That I went clear to Cincinnati for that one. That was a good time.
I haven't seen I've seen Danzig in concert, but I haven't seen Danzig do any solo tours in a while since getting back with Misfits.
He still does them. I saw him in Cleveland about 2 years ago do the whole first album, which was really cool.
Damn.
Yeah, that was really cool. There's a lot of. I've seen him I think 8 times now.
Shit.
And and I know there's a lot of songs that even I've never seen him do. So that was excellent.
Have you seen Doyle?
Yeah, I saw his solo band once.
Dude, they're fucking kill, dude.
Yeah, that dude, Alex Story, I think is his name. He's also in Cancer Slug, I believe.
Yeah, Cancer Slug.
Yeah, they're incredible. He's very high energy too. He kills it. Yeah.
The Cancer Slug is such a good band.
Yeah, he's really that guy's really talented. He doesn't get enough credit. He's really good.
He's a workhorse though. Cancer Slug has been in the scene for like 20-something years and has like a fuck ton of albums.
Yeah. In between doing shows with Doyle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he does both. And I wish Doyle would release a new album. It's been like 6 years.
Oh yeah, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, it's been a minute.
But he actually started when he left Misfits. He was starting a solo project. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was with the female wrestler Gorgeous George because he was married to her at the time.
Yeah, at the time, yes.
Yeah, that's actually how Alex joined Doyle, because Alex was the last vocalist that he had under that band.
Oh, okay.
And Doyle's like, what am I going to do now? And he's like, continue a band, but just as Doyle.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that man is like in the shape he's in, and he's like totally vegan. Did you know that?
Yeah.
He's like totally vegan, and he is jacked, and he has always been jacked.
He looks like a professional wrestler.
He did wrestle a couple times actually in WCW.
Bro, let's be honest though. ICP wrestled in WCW. David Arquette wrestled in WCW.
David Arquette had the world title in WCW.
David Arquette
never let him live that down either.
David Arquette got such a bad rap from winning that belt that he actually went on to become a real professional wrestler and try to prove himself.
About that, yeah, that's pretty mind blowing.
He actually did a death match a few years ago and almost died.
I believe it. Yeah, he's not at the age where he should be doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, somebody hit him over the head with a glass light tube or whatever.
Yeah, that's the big thing they're doing now. That's so dangerous. Like, because that was like a backup plan of mine at one point, was to be a professional wrestler, and I hurt myself doing backyard wrestling when I was like 18. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing this.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that career was very short-lived.
Did you see where Sabu had his last match?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he like died a few weeks later, which is fucked up.
Yeah, like less than a month later or something like that.
It was 2 weeks, I do believe.
Wow.
Did you watch the match?
I did not. No, I've been meaning to, but I have not.
It's a death match.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 60 years old. He had just had his 60th birthday not long prior. And they had no ropes but barbed wire. And they had barbed wire boards and shit up. And it was kind of sad to watch because Sabu limped his way down to the ring. He could barely even do this.
Oh, man. And going through barbed wire and all that shit?
Face first, he went through barbed wire. But there was a bump that a lot of people said might have been what caused his downfall. He was propped up into the ring on a board, and the guy went to drop kick him. He went flying on the outside and hit his head off the concrete.
Ooh.
Yeah, and there was like a pool of blood underneath of his head.
Ugh.
Sandman came out, and it woke him up, and he got back into the ring and continued wrestling.
Jeez, that's hard. That's literally hardcore right there. Like,
yeah, but the thing is people are making a big stink out of it. But Sabu is one of them guys that like he would rather go out in the ring than go out in his deathbed.
Yeah. I believe that.
Like, hell, recently Dory Funk Jr. had his last match.
He's still wrestling.
84 years old, and he had a death match.
Oh, my God.
You know what his match was?
What's that?
No rope barbed wire exploding barbed wire match.
Nuh-uh.
At 84 years old.
That's a bad old man right there. Jeez.
He obviously he didn't take a whole lot of bumps, and for those that's listening that don't know what bump means, it means falling.
Yeah.
It means getting hit. He got hit a couple times with exploding barbed wire, which is still intense. And
yeah. It's pretty out there.
But in wrestling though, I was always told by wrestlers and shit that like it's not the barbed wire it looks worse than it actually is.
It does look pretty bad.
Same with thumbtacks.
Yeah, yeah.
But thumbtacks hurt worse coming out than going in.
I believe that, yeah.
When was you going to be a wrestler?
When we had, this is going back a long time. Like in my late teens, we had a wrestling league in my freaking living room. I'm not making this up.
That's fucking great.
Yeah. And like there was only a handful of us that wanted to do it. And so we'd have to be like multiple wrestlers. It was pretty nuts. Yeah, it didn't last a hell of a long time. Thankfully, this was before the internet was a big thing. So that never made it to the internet, thankfully, because I wasn't pretty good myself. A couple of guys weren't bad, but overall it was a bad idea.
I mean, if ICP can form the JCW, I think you can go.
Yeah. I would love to do something with wrestling, even if it's just like a concert where there's wrestling or something like that. That'd be incredible. you know.
Dude, I'm friends with local wrestlers. We can make that happen.
Yeah, that's not too out of reach, really. Now that you think about it, you know, like play a wrestler out or something. I've always wanted to do something like that. That'd be incredible.
Dude, that's badass. Because I've seen a few bands play wrestlers out. What really comes to mind is like when Limp Bizkit played The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, that's going back. And Motorhead played out Triple H at least twice, I do believe.
I think in total was 3 times, which is crazy because.
Oh, for sure. But I went through a phase there where I didn't watch it for about 3 or 4 years at all. And that probably happened during one of those times too.
Do you still watch today?
Yeah. Yeah, I watch WWE and AEW. And like AEW has some organizational issues, to put it mildly. But they have so many good wrestlers that I don't mind watching it, you know?
They're kind of going down, and I hate to say this, but they're kind of, if they don't change, they're going down the same road that WCW went down. Too much talent, not enough storylines, not enough good storylines anyway.
Yeah. The best one, and I know I sound like the majority in saying this, is probably Timeless Toni Storm. She is so entertaining, and she just says whatever. Like, I'm glad she went to AEW because it works for her. She can really be herself there and can push more envelopes than she could with a PG product, you know?
I saw somewhere, and it never came to fruition, but it'd be cool if it did. Tony Khan had a sit-down conversation with Shane McMahon.
Yeah, there was pictures lurking around the internet of like him with the Young Bucks. Excuse me. Like him with the Young Bucks and stuff like that. So there might have been there's some weight to that for sure, because there was, a lot of people seeing him like backstage at AEW. I don't know what went down or if it got out and they're keeping it under wraps, but Shane McMahon in AEW would be insane.
That would be, because Shane is not like his dad, at least from what I've seen.
Yes.
He's not like his dad, and that's why he never lasted in WWE. He came and went.
Right.
And with Vince out of the picture, I think it would be interesting, friendly competition amongst family if Shane did go to AEW.
It really would. They could use a good mind like him. You know what I mean?
Or Paul Heyman.
Oh, wow. Talk about, like, for years I was like, Bobby Heenan's the greatest manager of all time, but I think Heyman has eclipsed him at this point. Heenan was legendary too. You know, Heenan was a great commentator and just on-air personality. Like, I don't know if you remember about, like, the banter between him and Gorilla Monsoon back in the day was just absolute gold. It really was. And they winged a lot of that too.
It's crazy though, because with Heyman, he's not just a good manager. He was a great promoter back in ECW days. His downfall was he couldn't handle money. So let him write, and I think he would be golden, dude. Look at the people he created.
It's true.
He created Sandman, which later on created Stone Cold Steve Austin. He created Cactus Jack. He created all these characters that later on took over Japan, He rebooted careers. Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think.
Raven was like Scotty Flamingo or something, going absolutely nowhere. That's an obscure wrestling reference for you that nobody's going to get, but like me and you and a couple other people. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah. For some reason he never wrestled, and then he came as Raven, and we're like, why wasn't he wrestling? This guy's great.
What's crazy that a lot of fans don't realize or might not even remember, when Sandman first hit the scene, he was a surfer.
I actually don't remember that.
Yeah, he would come out wearing surf pants, like there's multicolored surf pants and a wife beater.
Oh, wow.
Like old school Sting style, but without the makeup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then he turned around and just became an alcoholic.
It worked. The best gimmicks are the ones where you don't really have to act too much, you know?
I always made the joke that if I was a wrestler, I'd never want Sandman to save me, because he took about 25 minutes to get to the ring.
Yeah, I'll never forget, too. I actually had the rare opportunity, I didn't realize how rare it was at the time, to see an ECW pay-per-view in person.
Dude, that's fucking awesome. Which
Yeah,
one?
1997. And I'll never forget it. It was actually wrestling Sabu, and Sabu put him through a table. And after the match, Sandman's hand was clearly broke. And a little kid stopped and said, "Hey, Sandman, what happened to your hand?" He said, "Well, kid, I just fucking broke it." And he patted the kid on the head and just kept walking. And that kid couldn't have been happier.
Which pay-per-view is this, bro?
November to December 1997.
Damn, dude, that's amazing.
It's way back there, but yeah.
Dude, was New Jack there that night?
I don't recall the Gangsters being there. I don't recall. They might have been. I don't recall them being there.
I got to meet New Jack a few years ago. It was
That'd be interesting, to put it mildly.
When I say a while ago, I mean a while ago. I was like 14 or something like that at the time. It was a local indie company, and he had his autograph table, right?
Mm-hmm.
His was right here. Billy Gunn was coming later, and his was right here. So the line was crazy to his table, but me being a hardcore wrestling fan at the time, I was hanging out with New Jack all day.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody else was there.
Wow.
Like, people would show up and ask for an autograph, but nobody was like actively going to his table and talking to him because of the reputation. He's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But he was really nice to me. And I remember the wrestling was going on, and I was kind of watching with my dad. Then I'd go over and talk to New Jack and shit. And I was like, Jack's like, "Give me a second." And the guys were talking in the ring, and all you heard was his theme song. He's like, "I'll be right back, little white boy." And he stood up and he grabbed the chair and he hopped in the ring and started beating ass, bro.
That's great.
He was one of the few wrestlers, man, that his theme would play while he wrestled.
Yeah, that's true. It would play like the whole match too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody else ever really did that. Yeah. Now you think of it. Yeah.
There is a wrestling match that I've been looking for, and it is your homework to find it because I can't.
Okay.
Now you may never find this, but you can find promos. But let's see if you can. New Jack versus The Undertaker, Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I've heard of this actually.
They wrestled, but I can't find footage anywhere.
Taker's my all-time favorite, like as a lot of people know, because like, I mean, just like, hey, who's ever going to have a WrestleMania record like that? You know what I mean?
Nobody.
And like, and his character was kind of like an inspiration too, because no matter what happened, I mean, they'd bury him alive, set him on fire. He always came back.
That's the one gimmick, and I've always been told this. This is the one gimmick that shouldn't have worked, but it did.
Yeah, yeah. Even he'll say that. Like, he thought, oh boy, this is not going to work, and it got over quick.
For decades.
30 years, yeah.
I think there's only one other wrestler right now that is undefeated at WrestleMania. Rob Van Dam, 2-0. He has not lost at a WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't think he has, yeah.
Also, a fun note, we talked about Sabu earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Sabu was supposed to win the World Heavyweight title, but WWE didn't let it happen?
No, I never knew that.
ECW One Night Stand, Sabu versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight title.
I remember that match, yes, but I don't even remember the outcome, to be honest.
Sabu said in an interview it upset him so bad because they were wanting to give him the belt, but they didn't want to because it would have overshadowed the main event, which was RVD versus John Cena.
I do remember that very well, yes.
WWE did not want two ECW guys winning their major titles at a pay-per-view. But that would have been amazing. It would have been like the Chris Benoit Eddie Guerrero moment. Have Sabu come out and then both holding the major titles.
Yeah, very easily, yeah. Yeah, I think that would have worked. I mean, he probably wouldn't have had it very long, but I think that would have worked.
But the outcome was actually a double knockout. Wasn't even a DQ, wasn't a double DQ. They knocked each other out.
That sounds like a rush finish to me.
Yeah. Sabu hit a leg drop through a table on top of Rey Mysterio, and that was it.
Oh.
It was a lazy finish.
Yeah. Kind of like the end of this year's WrestleMania. I'm like, really?
WWE, though, like, I don't know. Triple H is doing a good job over there, but it's not. There's too much writing. There's too much wrestling right now.
Yeah, he's got a lot of product to compete with now. You know, there's a lot of indie federations that do pretty good, like GCW and MLW, and New Japan's still doing pretty good, even though they keep losing guys to AEW and WWE. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of wrestling's kind of making a comeback. It's not like as mainstream as it was, but a lot of people know about it and are watching again.
Mm-hmm. And like, there's always been a lot of wrestling, but it feels like more now because it's easier to access online. Like, especially MLW. Like back in the day, you used to have territories.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now you have everything at once. And I even find it weird that just yesterday I saw a picture posted of Shawn Michaels holding the TNA world title. Like, what?
Thought that would have ever happened.
But do you think with Triple H at the helm of WWE, we might see partnerships and cross promotions with other companies more often?
I hope so. I think it's always good for the business in general when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a couple people. This is very current wrestling I'm going to talk about. I know a couple people are boo-hooing about Joe Hendry and my favorite female wrestler at the moment, Stephanie Vaquer, losing, but I think they're getting called up.
Yeah, you have to lose to win.
Stephanie Vaquer is so solid, and I think they're both getting called up already. I think that's why they both dropped their titles. It would make sense to me, at least.
Well, the way WWE works is they'll bring you in to lose, and then they'll push you.
Yeah, yeah.
Hell, they did that shit with Sting, for God's sakes.
Oh, I don't want to talk about what WWE did to poor Sting.
I have a better storyline than that.
They should have just gave him the Undertaker match that literally everybody but Vince McMahon wanted.
Exactly.
I saw another podcast, and he talks about it, and him and Sting were definitely all for it.
Yeah. They've wrestled before.
They did in WCW, yeah.
Mean Mark Callis.
Yes, that's where I first saw him. He was a Paul Heyman guy back in the day.
Yeah, well, Paulie dangerously.
Yeah, before Paul Heyman guy was a thing. Excuse me, my cats are impersonating wrestlers at the moment.
You're good, brother. You're good. You're good. And honestly, if you ever want to come back on here, dude, there's always a place for you. I love chatting.
Awesome. Go ahead.
With ECW, though, back to the ECW thing, I read somewhere that ECW, they had plans after their TV deal before Heyman sold, and he was going to no longer be doing hardcore wrestling.
Wow.
He was wanting to go more towards being a MMA professional wrestling company where they use more martial arts.
Wow. I never heard about that. That's pretty wild.
And I think that would be crazy. So are you a Star Wars fan? Since you're a wrestling nerd, you got to be a Star Wars nerd too.
I like the original 3, and I've seen them all, but I didn't like the original. Well, not the original 3. Technically, episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah,
always gravitated towards, and everything else really never did it for me. But I do like the original ones, yes.
Well, did you hear what was supposed to happen with the prequel trilogy that would have made them better, in my opinion?
What's that?
All right, the way George Lucas was doing the prequel trilogy is he was wanting all of the dark side people to mirror the light side people in the original trilogy.
Okay.
All right, with that being said, Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be revealed as being the ultimate Sith Lord.
Wow. That's pretty insane.
But
told me that once, and I had a bit of a buzz on it, and I thought they were fucking with me. I didn't believe them.
No, George Lucas... With Yoda was this bumbling idiot, but they revealed him as this powerful Jedi in the same movie. George Lucas was going to let it build and then reveal him, but fans hated it so much that he pulled the plug on that idea.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been definitely interesting.
I think it would have been better.
Probably, yeah.
Like, I don't know. So you only like the OG, huh? First 3?
Yeah, that's about it.
It's hard to explain to non-Star Wars fans because you say, I like the first 3 Star Wars fans, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. That'll confuse some people right off the bat.
Well, I heard somewhere the reason why for that was he didn't have the technology to do the movies he wanted to do, so he waited.
Yeah, I've heard that too from multiple people.
So that's even more intelligent of George. And I find it even more crazy that the guy that played Emperor Palpatine, I forget his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't remember it either.
But he played younger Emperor Palpatine in the prequel trilogy, and he played Palpatine in the original movies. So 15 years later, he played a 15-year younger version.
That is wild, yeah.
Like, and 15 years younger from the original trilogy, so 20 to 30 years younger than he actually is. And that's not the first movie to do that.
No,
They did that with Jigsaw.
Yeah. I never saw the latter Saw movies. I'm really only partial to like the first two, but I've heard the last couple have kind of brought the first vibe of the first two back. So I am willing to give them a watch when I get time. Yeah.
So do you like B-rated horror films, like the ones that are like cheaply made?
Sometimes, yeah, but I'm kind of weird. There's certain things like in horror movies or movies in general I won't watch, believe it or not.
Like what?
I'm not real big on like animal violence or rape and stuff like that. I just think it's very distasteful. Like, I'm not gonna say these people are bad people. It's just a movie, but I don't know. It just something about it doesn't really feel like my kind of movie I should be watching. But again, it's just film. More power to them. But yeah, I like just the fun slashers. I think a lot of like, especially a lot of modern underground horror tries to be too realistic, and I like the wink to the audience, as Alice Cooper would say, that you don't get from some of the modern movies I've seen. Like Hatchet was a lot of fun. It didn't take itself too seriously, and that was a pretty good series if you haven't seen that. And Trick or Treat was kind of fun too. You know, there was a lot of jokes in that one. The one that came out in 2006 with the little Sam guy, that was really good too. And I saw a horror film recently. I don't even know if you could call it a horror film. You've probably seen it. It was called Late Night with the Devil. Have you seen that one?
Seen commercials, but I've not watched it. No.
Very different, very interesting, and very creepy without being like, I mean, I like gore, but there's hardly any like violence in it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the atmosphere. You know what I mean? It's the vibe and the atmosphere of the film that's unsettling. And there's barely any violent acts whatsoever in it. But gore's never bothered me. I mean, I watched a lot of kids my age. I caught on to horror pretty young. I mean, I was Freddy Krueger in like 3rd grade. So I caught on to it at a pretty young age. So the violence thing never really bothered me.
Well, the thing is, though, is people don't realize, and much like you said, you don't really need violence for a good horror movie because the first Halloween had no blood.
Yeah, that's true.
It was all like hinted at violence, but there was no actual you saw the violence.
That's true. Yeah. And that one too has like the best ending to a horror movie I've ever seen to this day. I asked my mother about that, and she said when it came out, people were locking their doors. Like, it was freaking people out big time.
You know what else is freaky as hell? You know that mask he's wearing?
Yeah.
Do you know where that mask came from or who it is?
I can't remember. I was told just before, and I read about it before too, but it's escaping me at the moment.
They was on a very low budget, so they couldn't custom make a mask. At least the story I heard.
Yeah.
So they went to a local Halloween store, and they were selling Captain Kirk masks.
Yes, that's it.
It's fucking William Shatner painted completely white.
That's insane.
Could you imagine? There's someone on the roof. Something. And it's just
I shot him 6 times. Yeah, that would.
I think they need to do a new Halloween movie, and at the very end, the big reveal, and it's just actor Mike Myers. Like, yeah, baby, yeah. Just
like, yeah.
Does my knife make you horny, baby?
Oh yeah. Swing, yeah, with his knife out and shit.
What all shows you got coming up before we end up packing up and hitting the road? I'm not doing it anytime soon, but I wanted you to promote.
Oh, sure. we're doing a festival called Slam Tank, clear down in Beckley, West Virginia. We'll be on the second stage. That's Saturday, June 14th. That's coming up. Then, of course, we have the Midsummer Metal Fest, which I'm still on a high about from Chuck Billy of Testament giving us an endorsement.
Dude, I saw that. That was badass.
Yeah, Testament's one of my favorite metal bands, period. Not just like thrash, but just metal, because in my opinion, they've never made a bad album. I mean, there's some I like more than others, but as a whole, they've never made a bad record. I've seen them live twice, and they were just incredible. So getting a shout out from him meant a lot, you know. So that's coming up July 12th. That's going to be, well, it's going to be real. I think it's going to be the biggest it's ever been this year. I think it's going to have really good turnout. A lot of people are already paying attention to it, and it's not even June yet, you know. So I think it's going to be great. It's going to be nonstop music all day. 11 bands, that's a lot, but people are definitely going to get their money's worth. And then we're going back to a venue in Pittsburgh called 222 Ormsby. Have you heard of that place?
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've been or not.
Very small punk rock style venue. We're doing it's called the Thrash Bash, a bunch of like thrash metal bands. That'll be fun on August 2nd, I do believe. Then we're making our Erie, PA debut on September 6th. I've never even been there before, so that'll be really interesting. And we're playing the Haunted House again on October 17th, I do believe. And we're going to do a Halloween bash on the 25th. But details of that I can't talk about yet. But we're going to do a Halloween bash locally on October 25th. Halloween is obviously my favorite holiday, like a lot of metalheads. And I still dress up, even if I just throw something together. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. Like the last time we played, I dressed as like Willy Wonka or something. It was a great time.
Dude, you have the hair for it.
Yeah. It was a great time. It was hot as hell up there, but I mean, it happens, you know.
Now imagine how the fuck Guar feels.
I still hope the Capitol knows what they're getting into, because they're going to destroy that fucking place, man.
I've never thought in my life I would see Static X. I think Dope, right? Dope's there too.
Yeah, obviously, because we all know it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, Static.
And Guar in a seated arena.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Actually, side note, I actually had a funny encounter with Wayne Static in 1999.
Really good.
The Wisconsin Death Strip just came out, their first album, and he was just wandering around the lawn, and he was clearly out of his mind already. And I was like, "Hey, man, you're the dude from Static X," and he literally asked me if I had any acid right then and there. I'm like, no, I got a joint. He's like, oh, okay, man, have a good day. And he just kind of fucked off.
That's an amazing memory. Did you ever meet him since then and after?
No, unfortunately, I never did. No. I would have brought it up too. Yeah. That was hilarious. Like, I'll never forget that.
That reminds me of that video of Ozzy performing live. He's like, anybody have drugs? If so, give me some. And then he continued performing. You good?
Okay, I'm gonna move real quick because I have an old phone and the battery sucks. So
you're good there. If you have to cut it off, man, we can easily pick back up again and do this again, man.
Oh no, I'm having a good time here. Let me see if I can still be seen if I plug this in.
You're good. You have a very beautiful wrinkle on your hand there. It was beautiful.
What's that?
You have a beautiful wrinkle, and the wrinkle in between your hands when you're grabbing the. It's beautiful.
Well,
So, what was the conversation like, though, when you finally got into Altered States and started writing music? Was you guys like rehearsing old songs when you first met them and started doing them?
We had a batch of songs from previous bands that either were never released or like put out on cassette tape many years ago, you know. So we used a lot of those old songs until they had one song called Insomniac, which I still love to this day. If we had like a headlining set, I would throw it in there now. It's a great song, and I'm always really attached to the earliest material. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we used a lot of older stuff because Mike and BMO had been in a band or two before as well. at least one band I know of that I think it was Sheer Greed. That's going way back. And yeah, and they knew each other. So they already had a little bit of chemistry there. And I guess Mike and Tim were jamming together, you know, when he was first trying to get Altered States back off the ground for a couple weeks, at least before even BMO got involved in the scene. And yeah, so we started doing like a lot of older songs. Then as we kept writing, we kept dropping those off. And we were always talking about doing a cover, but as time went on, we just kept writing and just said, fuck that, we'll just do our own stuff. There's plenty of good cover bands out there already, and plenty of bands that already do good covers. We'll just do all of our own songs. And Mike has wrote a lot of the material, but he said on the radio that he's pretty much going to hand the lyrics over to me, and I'm ready. You know, I'm here for it. Let's get it. You know what I mean?
Let's fucking do it. I mean, you did that with Disobey all them years, so.
Yeah, I went through a phase where I didn't write too much, but and even still, like, I don't automatically write, you know what I mean? Like automatic writing. But if I'm given something, I can usually work up something pretty quick.
Yeah, at least you got that.
Yeah, yeah.
How's your writing process work, though? Do you have to be given the instrumentals first, or do you just write down lyrics and work along with the instrumentals that are given?
Yeah, you know, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. It's pretty much old-fashioned. Like, Michael will show me a guitar riff, and it always helps because I used to play drums and would love to get back into it, not to really do another band. You know, I know somebody always needs a drummer, but more to like as a fun way to exercise. I'm too lazy to like jog or lift weights. I just am. I'm just not going to do that. And but yeah, I used to play drums, so at least if I get like a guitar riff and some drums, I can write to it pretty quickly and easily.
That is very true. A lot of bands do look for drummers, because when I was trying to get into music, it's always the drummer that's the hardest to find.
Yeah, yeah. Or the drummer's already in like 3 bands because he's a band, you know?
I was at a local show many, many years ago, and I remember vaguely there was like 4 or 5 bands on the bill, but like every single band had the same lineup. They just switched.
Yeah.
They just switched.
That sounds about right. That's happened a few times, yeah.
They just switch what instrument they're on. And then switch out members. Look at the fuck. Dude, why don't you just keep the band name and just change who writes what?
I think this is going back about a decade or so, but I think the last Entropy show was the lineup of Brimstone Coven, the original lineup of Brimstone Coven, all on different instruments. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the last Entropy show.
You gotta fucking love it, dude, because there's also a lot of bands I've noticed too that will like, they will break up. Then this new band will come out of the woodwork, but it's like the same band, but like one guy's the singer instead of another guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. It is different because it's a different voice, but like, you know, I don't know. That's like, I feel a bit hypocritical because sometimes I get really like, I don't like it when a band finds a new singer or a new member or whatever. And then I realize I listen to Guar.
Yeah. They've had a lot of members throughout the years.
They have no original.
I believe that, yeah. I would believe that. Napalm Death doesn't have any original members.
No.
I don't think the current, maybe the bass player, but the current lineup of Sepultura, I think, with the exception of possibly the bass player, I don't think they have any original guys either.
How about Cannibal Corpse? Isn't the guitarist the only original member or some shit?
The bassist and drummer, yeah. I forget their names off the top of my head. But yeah, those guys I think are the only 2 that have been there since day one. That's a consistent band. Like, every time I've seen them live, they've been killer. They're like really nice guys. You know, I don't think they ever made a bad record. Again, there's some I like a lot more than others, but yeah, that's a really consistent band in general, was Cannibal Corpse, you know.
Which era do you prefer, though, Chris Barnes or George Fisher?
That's tough, you know, because the Barnes era was so, like, influential, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of death metal bands got their start listening to bands like that, you know what I mean? And, but they put out so much material with Corpse Grinder, and they've been so consistent. I don't know, you know, because I liked 6 Feet Under, at least the old stuff, a lot. I thought that was pretty cool too. So I might have to go with Cannibal Corpse with Fisher, because we wouldn't have got 6 Feet Under if it wasn't for that.
Fair.
But both are equally great. You can't go wrong.
That's very fair. And Cannibal Corpse is very influential in those regards as well.
What's that?
And Cannibal Corpse is one of the most influential death metal bands.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's a fun note that I just thought of. By the way, I have the ADHD too, so my conversations go everywhere. Did you know that Cannibal Corpse was Jim Carrey's favorite band?
Is that how they got in Ace Ventura? Because that's the first time I actually heard him. Because before, like, file sharing and streaming and even like the internet, we would buy a lot of records just by the album cover or the song titles. Mm-hmm. But we were not young enough to buy Cannibal Corpse tapes, and our parents were not having that at like 12.
Well, I guess.
And we saw Ace Ventura, and we must have watched that scene with Cannibal Corpse about 100 times. Where they play Hammer Smash Bass. We're just like, this is the greatest thing ever. Lead singer sounds like a bear. I have no idea what's going on. People are beating the hell out of each other. This is great.
Well, Jim Carrey was a fan of 2 bands at the time, Napalm Death and Cannibal Corpse.
Oh, nice.
And Cannibal Corpse said, we can do the movie, but we're on tour. And Jim Carrey told them, we're postponing the movie just so you can be in it.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's actually a whole scene that never made the movie. You can find it on YouTube of him singing Cannibal Corpse.
I think he stage dives and everything in that one. Yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, he sings Cannibal Corpse and then stage dives, and the detectives are trying to find him.
Oh, yeah.
They get some good shit. Hey, you going to go see the Murder Junkies? They're on tour.
Never seen them. So I don't go to nearly as many concerts as I used to, because it's such an expensive endeavor. You know what I mean?
I doubt Murder Junkies cost that much.
They just really shouldn't. Like, I won't give away how much I paid for Marilyn Manson, but that's one of my all-time favorites. I had to do it, and especially as good as he's sounding now, and like as good as his newest album was, I was all about it. If he was still fucking up, I probably wouldn't have went, in all honesty. But
I find it very weird, because I really do want to see Manson again, because I've not seen him since the last time I saw him. He was still on drugs and he couldn't perform. But I found it really weird when he did that whole like religious shit with Kanye, and then everybody kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, that was pretty short-lived. I think that was like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, obviously, but I think that was a time where he was trying to find himself again, if that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to refine footing in the, in life or in the music world. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how anybody could work with Kanye longer than 2 seconds. I'd strangle that guy. I couldn't do it.
Well, it didn't last, and it was weird because I think it was more of a publicity stunt. Because
that too, yeah, it very easily could have been that as well.
There's no way in hell you're going to tell me Marilyn Manson, of all people, is going to find religion through Kanye West.
Yeah, yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense to anybody, including myself.
Was you ready to burn all your Manson CDs?
I thought about it.
You're like, God damn it, it's not you.
Right, of all people, yeah.
But I do enjoy, I think he just did it to ruffle feathers, because that's what Manson does.
Exactly, yes.
And I can't speak for anyone because I wasn't there, but I'm not going to quit supporting Manson because of allegations that have not been proven true.
That's very true, yeah.
Because she lost that court case because it came out that she was paying women to lie about him.
Yeah, one of them, at least one of the girls, blatantly admitted that at one point.
So they basically tried doing to Manson what they did with Depp.
Exactly.
They tried to Johnny Depp him.
And we found out that Amber Heard was completely batshit insane. You know?
No, we're not gonna say that Johnny Depp wasn't toxic himself.
Yeah.
But she wasn't perfect either, and Johnny Depp ain't the one that shit the bed. So let's just
well, literally, yes.
The thing is, I think what happened is some of these women knew that Manson's a kinky motherfucker. Look at him. He's a kinky dude. They agreed to some kinky shit, and now they're trying to use his perversions and his own kinks against him instead of saying, hey, it was consensual, we just had a breakup or whatever the situation was.
Yeah, you could definitely be onto something there. Yeah.
Because I've known some people that's happened to that is into some kinky sex and shit, and women claiming that, oh, it wasn't consensual anymore because I'm not interested anymore. And that's horrible because there's real victims out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's lessening actual crime and actual victims.
Yeah, it's taking the focus off that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's horrible because people know that if a man is accused of something, they're automatically guilty, no matter what happens. We saw that with Michael Jackson. No matter. If you're proven innocent in court, you're still guilty.
Yeah, he never got over that, really. You know what I mean?
No. They only quit talking about it when he passed away.
Yeah, and some people still bring it up.
Yep, and it's horrible because he was proven innocent. Everyone defended him, and still people are claiming he's guilty just because somebody accused him of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, and the guy never had a childhood, like, at all.
No.
He wasn't allowed to play. He wasn't allowed to do anything a normal kid does. So, of course, he built an amusement park when he made billions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also he did it for terminally ill kids.
Oh, I never knew that. Wow.
Yes, so they could have a childhood before they died.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I never knew that.
Now, there is a conspiracy theory that I have about MJ, but I'm not going to tell it on air. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
But I am going to get off of here, and we can chat after we end this. Would you like to come back soon?
Sure.
Let's do this. We can dive through the occult and music and horror next time. Because I know you're into those kind of things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I love you, brother. Where can we find you?
I had a YouTube channel, but I haven't updated it in a long time. I used to do vocal covers on there. I have an Instagram, but I don't do much of that either. Facebook's probably the best way. And, of course, alteredstatesband.com, I think it is. ALTARED. You can look that up, and we're always out there, you know. Mike is a tireless worker. I can't thank this whole band enough for everybody being as equally driven, on the same page, and everybody pulls their weight. And, like, Mike and Wendy especially just put endless work into this band. So yeah, you know, we're out there, and yeah, that's about it really. Facebook's the best way to get a hold of me because I'm always on there. And yeah, you know, Altered States will be out there kicking ass all year.
Woo! I'm so proud of you, bro, and everything that you're accomplishing and your continued success.
Thank you.
Remember, guys, go check him out. Go check out Altered States. Once this post, there will be links below in the little description. As always, guys, live long, rock hard.
Have a good one, everybody.